Beta2Boss with Chase Harmer. Growth, scale, success.
All right. Welcome to Beta2Boss. I got two of my brothers from another mother, Keegan and his brother Cory from Blue Pack Marketing. These guys are dominating the marketing space out in North Carolina. I met them at an event back in Las Vegas a few months back, and we reconnected in San Diego. Had a bunch of fun together, and they're working with a lot of guys all over the world doing amazing things. So thank you so much, guys, for being on the podcast today. Cory and Keegan. Hello.
Welcome. Thank you for having us, dude.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You got it, man. So, I was looking at the About Us section in Blue Pack Marketing, and I know that you guys formed the Blue Pack Marketing because of the love of the sports for North Carolina. And when I was coming out, I got a track scholarship. One of the schools that I was supposed to go to was NC State. And I was just thinking about that when I saw the whole thing that you guys put together there. So tell me a little bit about how you guys formed the company, because Beta2Boss is about growing this company from big to small. And I know you guys are a big deal now. And well, tell me a little bit about where you guys came from and how you guys started this company.
You want to take this one?
No.
Okay, cool. My story's way better anyway. So it started with, so Keegan and I had probably the closest thing to a multi-billion-dollar deal ever that just never happened. So Keegan and I have been in business with each other now for probably 10 years total. We had a flag football league that we started with like 2 teams, 3 teams. It actually grew to probably the largest flag football organization in the country. And we would have tournaments with close to 100 teams. And we turned it into it was roughly almost a 6-figure business from men playing flag football. I mean, it's crazy to think like these dudes are running around almost getting into fights. They have streamers on their hips. We monetized that, and it almost took their egos, kind of did stats, highlights. Keegan did like a really nasally top 10. And
it was very Chris Berman-esque.
It was
loved it.
It was like a Kmart version of Chris Berman.
You guys have like a little YouTube channel like with the announcements every week, or what do you guys do?
If anybody listening wants to get a good laugh, look at Triad Flag Football, search oldest to newest, and you can see the evolution of, we didn't know what we were doing until the day we sold that company, where we still really didn't know what we were doing, but we did it on a mass scale. So we had some businesses together, and one of the funniest ones to talk about is we had an idea. Dudes are pretty gross and perverted and silly, right? So we had the idea of like going in the bathroom and putting your favorite or opposite, like the rival team to your sports team, in the toilet and making a decal that could hold up to toilet conditions, right? So we used.
Was it like one of those like blue like toilet thingies that you put in there, or?
No. So that's a urinal cake. But,
Okay.
but what we wound up doing was we found nautical adhesive, and we had a vector made of just a fan, and you would change out the color on his shirt and the color of his foam finger with number 1 on it, and it might, as a Duke fan, we might have a Carolina Tar Heels one, and you could piss on it, shit on it, and it would hold up because it was nautical adhesive. So we had a really,
I like that.
really good
product testing too.
Yeah.
What did you guys test with? What are your worst enemy teams?
So, well, it's funny because like as an NC State guy and Keegan as a Duke guy, it's like we both share the common bond of hating the University of North Carolina. So the Tar Heel, Chapel Hill, the Carolina Blue, all that grossness. We share a common bond of the sickening feeling of watching them and their fans and the people of that city.
Yeah, and it's a really good concept, but there's absolutely no way to get licensing for that. Nobody's going to want to license their school for that. So we sold it unlicensed for a while before we even knew what Facebook marketing was. Right. And it was pretty successful, but it roughly fell to the wayside as the flag football league started to expand. So the way that everything came to be, how Blue Pack marketing literally, just happened. We were in all of these different ventures, the flag football thing, the nautical adhesive. Along the way, I had a Chicago sports website that I monetized through Google AdSense. And eventually I wanted to find a way to monetize it even further and turn it into my full-time job. So I was 23 years old. I didn't have a degree. And, Cory is making six figures in the oil field. So my goal in life, honestly, was to kind of screw around until I needed to, ask him for a job, which he would give me a job because that's responsible. So what wound up happening was between the flag football league, I had a retail gig. And
when he says he had a retail gig, he was working minimum wage at the mall.
Minimum wage. Salesmanship and the craft of selling.
Oh yeah, baby.
Just for not a lot of money.
While watching Netflix.
Yes. Traffic. Between those three, kid, 23-year-old, no kids, engaged, getting by, not crushing it, but not hurting. So eventually I found a site called Teespring, which would allow you to, third-party platform, it would let anybody come in and, develop a t-shirt business without having to buy a ton of inventory, process cards, like basically start a business. So what we wound up doing was we made shirts for my sports website just with our site logo. We sold 5 or 6. You needed 10 for it to go to print. Didn't work. And I thought, well, shit, it doesn't really make sense. I have a sports website. What if I just do sports shirts? So at the time, it was like the wild, wild west of unlicensed sports gray area parody shirts. Sure. So we crushed that. And I want to say my first campaign sold like 95 shirts. My second one sold 430. My next one sold 750. And just over time, as I was clocking into my shitty job at the mall, I was literally making my monthly salary before like 9 a.m.
That's legit. But how did you guys, what was the difference between you scale? Was it just you just perfecting it, or were you guys doing something different that was actually like?
Well, at the time, it was just me. So I was only doing Teespring. Cory was making pretty good money, with a real career, and I was just slanging shirts online. And
I thought he was selling drugs, like dead ass serious. Like I was like, dude, you don't need to be getting involved in that. Like because most like responsible businessmen would have business cards or like at least have some sort of accounting system. He literally had a drawer full of cash. Like that was it. You open a drawer and there's just money. And all I could think was like, number one, if that's what you're doing, like, I don't know if I'd leave that there. You might want to think of a better way. So like, I was like, hey dude, so like, tell me the real story. Like what's going on? Cause I know, this ain't coming from tailgaters, the mall in Greensboro. Yeah. And, hey, there's this thing called Teespring. And I was like, well, that's interesting. Like, tell me more about it. And this was probably circa 2013, 14, kind of in the early days. And, like Keegan said, I kind of had the career, I'd worked up from an area manager to, when I left, I was the director of operations at, in my late 20s. I was kind of on that route in the corporate world, managing pretty much everything from gasoline pricing to beer margins to, what we're putting outside on our MPDs, our multi-product dispensers at these gas stations. And it was a good career. It was with a big company. And saw what he was doing. I said, dude, listen, if we structured this, because he didn't have a ton of structure, and I came from a world of structure where, you grow by setting process. Yeah. And I'm like, dude, if your marketing ideas and what I know from, the last 5 to 6 years of running this business, we could actually take your marketing, my business, and make it a marketing business. So he's like, dude, you should quit your job. Now, given wife is pregnant, just bought a big house, making good money, company car, pretty much all expenses. And I'm going to go, just the theory of this, I'm going to go to my wife and say, hey, we're going to be selling these shirts. They're not licensed. They're really not licensed on Teespring, and I'm going to give up my career for it. I did a way better pitch job with her, and she was all about it. And she was nervous, but I took the leap. And it's crazy because we did kind of take that leap based on, some of the gray area, not black hat by any means, but, third party platform. And, after a couple of years, it just came to the fact of, that's not sustainable. Teespring owns the data, they own the customers. What are we going to do? Like, we need sustainability.
We very quickly found out that in the event of an exit, congratulations to them. Well, where would that leave us? We had roughly no foundation because we didn't own the customer data. So eventually, this was around the time that Shopify was kind of becoming a thing in the Facebook marketing world. And, we just decided that we needed to have a brand. So we wound up starting one, and we eventually exited this brand by selling it to a supplier. So this was maybe 3 years ago. It was in around 150 stores wholesale. It had done a little bit over $1.5 million in sales. It was a nice little six-figure exit. However, we really saw we can do this again. And obviously you signed the non-compete, so we had to do it in a completely different space, which was a little bit unknown to us, but we knew if we could take the marketing principles and just our strategies, that it would roughly translate to the next area. And we wound up doing that.
Well, there was a couple things that you guys said in there that I think are like a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with, is the ability to build that infrastructure, right? You came from Cory, you came from that background where you had like this, this infrastructure, and you, this corporate guy, right? And that infrastructure is important. And as we've grown, I've realized the pain points at every freaking level, because I wasn't from that. I've always been an entrepreneur. So like, I didn't have that background. So we had to do it really the painful way. How important is having that, like, to growth and scalability, like, for a business?
Well, you just get ready to fail. I mean, that's the easiest thing to tell people. Like, mentally prepare yourself for the plane crash a little bit. I know that's hard to say, and some of the people listening probably like, I don't quite understand what he means by that. You're gonna have turbulence. It's gonna be turbulent no matter what. There are gonna be things that, as media buyers, as entrepreneurs, as marketers, there's gonna be I's we don't dot. There's gonna be T's we don't cross.
The biggest thing would be fail fast.
Yeah.
If you're gonna make a mistake or have an issue, don't drag it out. Rip the Band-Aid off and fix it quickly. Because if you drag it out, it's only going to take up your time, which is the most valuable resource any of us have.
Well, that, and also, like, we were on an interview the other day, and they asked us, if you could give one piece of advice, what would it be? And mine would be, give up take some of your leverage off the table, take some of your power. Like, if you need a partner, if you need somebody to help do accounting, whether it's PayCertify helping you with credit card fees, no plug intended, but different things. Klaviyo has the ability to tell you about some awesome email marketing agencies. There's tons of Facebook guys out there. Like, utilize these things, hire people. There's in this world, like, we just want to, like, make a bunch of money, right? We're all capitalists. We want to make as much as we can. But if Keegan always talks about this, he talks about, would you rather have what's the grape watermelon?
Would you rather have the smaller part of a watermelon or the bigger part of a grape, and choose watermelon all day?
Yeah. So, like, think about that. Yeah, you have to hire somebody to do your books, right? You hire them at $60,000 to $100,000. You're not going to get an IRS audit. You're going to know that you've set enough taxes aside and in some sort of escrow account or holding account. You're going to be able to pay your bills. You're going to understand when you make $2 million, that's not $2 million. Like, that $2 million, there's going to be about 40% cost of goods. There's going to be acquisition cost in there. There's going to be taxes in there. I think once you're able to graduate from internet marketing, like, dude, into businessman or woman, you're able to bring these people on, and now you're truly running a business versus just being a media buyer. So, like, surround yourself with people.
No, for sure. Because you can grow capital really fast, but it gets out of control really fast if you don't have the structure to fulfill all the obligations to put yourself out there.
Yeah. There's a lot of moving pieces in this business. A lot of people say, well, it's just Shopify. I could do this by myself. To the people that do that, I commend them. There's people that I think multitask very well. I personally am not one of them. I like to be very task focused on completing 5 things each day, 5 very important priority 1 or 2s, and hoping that my team and hoping that we've trained them enough that they can complete those P3, P4, P5s for us, so that we're not just cycling the shit, so to say.
Sure. No, you guys are brothers, right? You guys get along really well. I mean, and so it was natural fit for you guys to be partners. Plus, you guys are totally different, right? So, I mean, in the business regard, the different ways that you guys communicate and do things. So, how important is it in a partnership to? I tried to do a partnership when I was in my early 20s, and it failed in a miserable fashion because we were all the same person trying to do the same exact thing. How important is it in a partnership to have like different capabilities and ultimately utilizing those capabilities to the success of the company?
You want?
See, that's almost like the partnership thing. He said, you want to take this one? So I'm going to jump out first. So I think as long as you can complement each other really well, like that's where it's going to work. And, I'm not going to say, partner up with everyone because it's the way to go, because there's certain personalities that just don't mesh very well where, even if we weren't brothers, like I still think we have two personalities that complement each other very well, because there's things that, what he's good at, it's things I don't want to be good at. And I don't have to be, because I know he's got it covered. And there's things where I'm better than him at, but he doesn't have to focus on it because I've got it covered. So as long as the personalities can mesh, and you really have to kind of put the ego aside a little bit. And there's times where we do argue. And it's almost like whoever is more passionate for 10 minutes about it is going to win the argument, because I'm going to argue very hard for 10 minutes and then I'm not going to give a shit. So roughly, we know if you feel that strongly about it, rest your case, come back with data, because we're not opinion guys. Nothing we do is ever about our opinion or what we think will work. It's always, all right, we're going to execute. And then however it comes back, that's what we're going to go with. We're going to go with data, and we're going to go with fact. So we try to remove a lot of the, well, I think this and we think that, and just go with what works.
Yeah, I think
super logical, but like so many people don't do that, right? So they utilize their opinions and treat that as fact when it's not.
Well, I also think it comes from the competitive edge from playing sports growing up, from both of us, that was kind of instilled by our parents. If you play, for instance, we both played quarterback many moons ago. And there's a relationship you have with your teammates where if you chew your wide receiver out or you chew an offensive lineman out, you should be able to 5-10 minutes later be able to have a normal conversation with them, because it's a very heat of the moment conversation. There's going to be arguments, but if you can't get past that, that's where partnerships really fail, because if you sit on it and you dwell on negativity, we've seen a lot of partnerships from people close to us and people not close to us completely fail. And it's completely driven by ego and not being able to, get over the negativity.
So an interesting part, Keegan brought up playing sports, and I think why we play, honestly, on the team so well together. So like I've been a starter, I've been a backup. Both of us played college football, and you go from high school where you're the man, all of a sudden you're on that college campus and you're one of 6 quarterbacks, 6, whatever position this is. You go into a corporate world, you're one of 7 people at your position vying for that director role or VP role. There's going to be a lot of people that, when someone succeeds, watch who claps. Like that was one thing that was taught to me, by my father, was, kind of take note of the people that when you succeed or when you win an award, like take note of the people around you that are clapping for you and tell you great job, and kind of notate the ones that kind of sit off to the back. We always want to be those guys, whether we're in the starting role or backup role, like truly support your teammate. Like if you're not that guy, you're not a team player at all. There's going to be times where we're going to have successes because of a decision that I made, that he made, that one of our team made. Like support them and celebrate that. And that, I think, is probably the biggest thing, is like knowing that like both of us have very specific skill sets. And sometimes sometimes I'll say, well, what if we did it this way? And he'll say, well, this is probably what would happen. And I understand he's probably got better of an understanding at that realm than I do. So it's like, hey, all right, that's cool. If we get some time, try it. But if not, like, I get that. Whereas a lot of people, I feel like in business partnerships it's like my way or the highway. And you don't need to be in a business partnership if that's your mentality, because you're just going to end up crashing and burning.
I think a lot of entrepreneurs too, like you are used to doing things yourself for so long that it's really hard to delegate the responsibilities. Being that you guys started this company together, was it hard for you guys to delegate, or was that easy for you guys to make that transition to build a team?
I think it was easy. Well, actually, you said when we started, so I was a little confused on that.
Well, you started basically, you guys, as an entrepreneur, you're basically doing everything yourself. You guys are doing all the media, you guys are doing everything, right? And then sometimes it's hard to give away that delegation because you are like, listen, I do this so well. And then you try to train somebody, they don't do it right, and you get upset. But was that easy for you? I mean, it was a hard transition for me personally, but I'm asking.
Yeah. So I guess, working together and delegating to him and him delegating to me, that was very easy. But in terms of delegating to another person outside of, your first couple hires, it was, it took us maybe 6 to 12 months to consider the first real big boy hire. Having a VA or a designer across town, across the country, it's not really the same. But if you're the type of person where you don't work remote and you work well from an office, or you leave the house and go somewhere to work, or WeWork, something like that, having an employee, having a team, it can definitely be hard, because honestly, now we're in maybe 16,000 square feet in this office. There's a just big production floor out there, marketing offices, all that. And I was completely against it. Not 1 ounce of me wanted to spend the capital to have even our first office, which was like $800 a month. And now this just behemoth and a huge, massive team, a nice chunk of overhead, but it's really a great motivating factor, because, you don't get days off. You don't get to just go take a 3-week vacation, because, you have well over, 50 people in this building that rely on us. And then, across all of our distributors and suppliers, probably over 1,000 people that rely on us. Yeah. So it's easy to keep it going 100 miles an hour, and you can't do that by yourself. So it's almost like you have to have faith and give up control, because one person can't do it all.
Well, it goes down to like, what do you want out of it, right? So like, I talk to people all the time and they say, well, I want a $5 million acquisition. I want a $10 million acquisition. I want a $20 million acquisition. Think of the statistics behind that. The percentages of people that ever make more than 10 grand in a business is like less than 1. So with the ability to say, I want $1 million. I want you to pay me $1 million for a business I built. The percentages of people that will ever be able to utter that word out of their mouth has to be fractional of 1% of 1%, right, in the world. When you want those kind of things that, we've decided we want these large acquisitions, we want to sell brands, we want to, work with different big players in the space and e-commerce, that doesn't come cheap. And not cheap in the meaning of like monetary value, but like your time, your energy. Like, we've decided that we want to grow this thing into an e-commerce juggernaut and partner with the big players in the space, right? To do that, we've got to teach, we've got to train, we've got to coach, and we can't bullshit people with fake screenshots and showing people the fourth quarter. Like, we got to show you the real stuff, man. And I think that's where it's, if we can be successful in March and April and do that with a team, that team's going to cultivate throughout the year. And all of a sudden in June, July, they're peaking coming into the fourth quarter. So then you're really doing some crazy stuff. So I'd say that would probably be the biggest thing, is like just understanding, like, when we bought the ticket, there's going to be days we get to ride the ride, so to say. So like, just kind of taking it with a grain of salt. Like, if you want to grow and scale, you've got to give up some of that rope.
Now, when you guys started, you guys basically you were selling products online. You guys started selling multiple products, I guess, a month. I know your business model has probably changed a little bit, because now you guys work with a lot of other, media, like other guys that are selling stuff, right? They're coming to you for you guys to do the marketing for them. So tell me about like how your business model's changed, and what are you guys doing today?
So when we first started, we worked with Teespring. We ended up working with them pretty in depth, working directly with Walker on a couple different projects. And Teespring is what the foundation for a lot of these guys are. Teespring, ThreadMeUp, ShineOn, kind of that first initial group. And ShineOn's really the one that stepped to the top, so to say, and still there in the print-on-demand space. But what happened along the way was we started seeing that Teespring owned the data. We didn't own the customer. We had to build this ourselves. So, you go out there and you look at all these different integrations with Shopify and applications from an on-demand standpoint of not having to carry inventory. And we said, well, I think we could do it better. And no offense to any of these players, but we saw specific bottlenecks or specific issues in the on-demand supply chain that we felt that we could scale. We went out, partnered with a guy who literally had one screen printer, and now that guy has more screen print capacity, more DTG capacity, embroidery on demand, all literally right behind our marketing office walls in our own building. So what we do is we built a print on demand brand, took it from 0 to over $30 million in roughly 2.5 years. We're looking to exit that brand now. Along the way, we started having e-commerce companies come to us. We've worked with everybody from Martin Garrix to the Discovery Channel to a Mark Cuban company to some of these big players that say, I'm converting at 2%. We're stagnant with e-commerce revenue growth. Could you guys help me? We like to work immediately on the site, kind of seeing what kind of tinkers, what makes that go from 2 to 4% or 5%? Is it the site speed? Let's do a full site review with you, right? At that point, we're going to get in there, kind of do some tinkering, get your site working, kind of like getting into that race car mode.
It's like bar rescue. Basically coming in there, fixing everything, getting it operable, and then that's where we start scaling the marketing efforts, because you don't necessarily want to enter a race with a broken race car. No. So you got to fix up the race car and then, off to the races.
Is there certain characteristics about the people that you take on that actually make it more of a partnership for you guys? There's probably a lot of people that you can work with, right? So, how do you guys pick and choose those people?
It's a great thing to be able to say that we can pick and choose, because, constantly we're bombarded with, different opportunities. And I believe maybe it was Warren Buffett that had a really good quote about being able to say no. And we used to say yes to everything. And that was the bottleneck within our own business, was actually, scoping out the potential of projects and sites, like what should be a yes and what should be a no. And over time, we were able to say no to a lot more things where we didn't. So some of the characteristics that we see the most success with is a site that's already established. So an established brand that maybe they were really big from the Facebook organic reach a couple years ago. They've had stagnant growth and they don't utilize any of these new omni channels that we're kind of crushing, like SMS with PostScript, push notifications with PushOwl, just basic sequential flows and daily campaigns through Klaviyo on email. A lot of companies, it's like they focus on one thing and they're pretty good at it. They're not great, but then we're able to bring in 3 to 4 different things that we're really good at that they're just not doing at all.
Right. What's the key to text marketing? I know that you guys use a third party for that. There's a lot of regulations around text marketing and reaching consumers and all that. Do you guys grab data on your pages somewhere and then have them opt in, or what's the secret to doing that?
So the number one secret would be don't go to jail.
Right. I actually know people that got in trouble. That's why I'm bringing it up, actually.
So what we learned with the regulations and restrictions working with Alex Beller with PostScript is politicians can do it however they want. Go figure. They get to get carte blanche to do however they want with SMS. Private citizens, we don't. There's a lot of privacy acts out there. But when a consumer enters your website, they agree to accept marketing. Number one, you have to be very specific that they are agreeing to accept SMS marketing. And if you're using PostScript, there's other platforms out there, I know. Make sure you follow the rules to integrate that into your checkout. Because if you're not telling consumers that they're opting into this, you're opening yourself up for a class action lawsuit.
That's the difference between using a random SMS company and using PostScript. So we've kind of found them to be, the juggernaut in the space, is because they're going to handle the compliance for you. They're not going to, put their
you guys aren't even involved with it, really.
Yeah, they're not going to put their neck on the line, by sending them out if we're not being compliant. So they helped us with our privacy policy, a lot of our terms, making sure, it specifically states this on the checkout. It says this here and this there. And that's probably what makes us feel really good about the regulatory stuff associated with it, is because I don't know that shit, but I know a guy that does.
Yeah, no. And we actually tested some stuff with SMS, and we had just a tremendous amount of opens. It was like 95% open rate on the stuff that we sent out. And I was like, wow, that's impressive. Did you guys, we kind of did it just to kind of test it. So we weren't totally, in compliance at that point before we actually started rolling it out in a bigger way. But as far as that's concerned, are you guys collecting stuff? You have a lot of different URLs now. So is that part of your marketing scheme for all the brands that you represent?
Yep. So what we like to do is, we'll use different exit intent captchas, so to say, on desktop or tablets. But on mobile, we have a mobile SMS opt-in. Gives the consumer kind of if they opt in, immediately they click opt in, they're going to get a 10% off coupon. From some sites, free shipping on some sites, 25% off on some sites. But we have a mobile opt-in. We also sent an email to our entire database. So the email went out, giving them the ability to get a $5 cash, pretty much a gift card to all of our stores if they opted in that way too. So when you have an email list like we do on some brands, 500,000, 600,000, and you can get 15 to 20% of people to opt in, you're all of a sudden you've got a massive list. Suppose you build your SMS list to 100,000 people, and you're talking 80 to 90 to 95% open rate, your click-through is going to be monumental. So we use mobile opt-ins, email opt-ins, and then of course just making sure we're not giving them bullshit. A lot of times if you're just sending every day, they're going to quit opening those, or they're just going to unsubscribe, right? We try to make it very kind of calculated on the fact that we're going to send, maybe around the 1st or the 15th. We're not going to necessarily always send on a Friday. We're going to send on some Mondays and Tuesdays, because think about our consumer is different. If you have a consumer that's a third shift employee, they're sleeping during the day. If you're selling, rave equipment, but if you're selling tank tops, those people are at work on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Maybe Tuesday at 10 a.m. is a good time to kind of break up the monotony of that 9 to 5 for the consumer.
Sure. Well, let's just revert back a little bit, just because we're running out of time. What's the best piece of advice that you guys can offer an entrepreneur? Now, I know you guys are two different personalities working as one, but I'd love to hear from both of you guys. So who wants to start?
I would say we read a book a couple of months ago, 10% Happier by Dan Harris, former ABC newscaster, NBC, one of those things. And, part of the book talks about meditation, and, I'm not going to get up here and say that I'm meditating. I did try it. It wasn't really for me. But roughly one of the things that he talked about was asking yourself, is this useful? Like, instead of doing well, if I do this and have a bad day, then I'm going to go out of business. In 6 months, I'm going to have to get a new job. I'm going to have to get new clients. Roughly take your time. If you've got your dick in the dirt a little bit and you're just having a moment, have your moment. But then after that, get on with it. So the second that you let it affect you longer than that in the moment, it's no longer useful. So if you worry about, let's say something happens, you have a payroll issue, or you're worried about the IRS. Well, actually the IRS, that they probably will come get you later. but if you're having maybe a banking issue or whatever it is, well, let's say you fix it, but then you're dwelling, well, what if it happens again? Well, what if I do this? What if my employees think this of me? Like, you just need to hurry up, fix it, because at that point it's no longer useful. The second something's no longer useful to dwell on, like, get beyond it. And honestly, I'm a little antagonistic by nature, and I'm sure he would agree. Like, I like to talk shit. I like to talk trash. Like, I kind of enjoy it in a weird way.
Right.
But that's why it was such a weird thing for me to adopt from this book, because it's almost like I want to get riled up about something, but if I'm riled up for 20 minutes, that's 19 extra minutes where I'm not bettering myself, bettering the company, providing a better future for our employees, our staff, and anyone we associate with.
Well, it's a good way to put it, right? But like, how do you get yourself out of that mode, right? Because ultimately, when you get your emotions worked up and you're wearing your emotions on your sleeve, it's hard to get yourself out of that zone. What do you do to actually get yourself out of that zone?
Ask, is this useful? And when I say in your head, it's like, I'm pissed off, I don't care, this is a stupid practice. Then you ask yourself again, is this useful? And over time, it actually works because honestly, like I said, I get riled up. I'm probably the more emotional one, where Cory, he'll take it, and then just blow up. I'm different way. Like, I'm gonna blow up at stage 1. So I think that's really helped me just be a little more even keel, and a little more positive, like not preaching insane positivity like that, but it has helped. It's definitely helped being a little more positive, and approaching problematic situations completely different.
That's fantastic. Cory, what about you?
I'd probably say mine would be like, know your numbers. Keegan took kind of more of the personal approach. I came from the corporate world of like, if you weren't hitting certain, EBITDA numbers, or you weren't hitting, certain revenue or margin numbers, like it was your neck on the line. In this world where we're entrepreneurs and we're running these businesses, it's your people that are on the line. It's your reputation that's on the line. And, we all hear about these VC funds out there that give millions and millions of dollars into these companies, and these guys who raise $50 million, $100 million. You got one shot when you do that. So these guys that are raising, and if you're listening and you've raised money, like, know your numbers, because if you've taken $10, $15 million in financing or funding, you've got to perform. You can't just be in the business, so to say, of raising another round, or, hey, sales are down, but I don't know why. Like, you've got to be able to figure it out. But if you don't know just know your basics, you have no clue. So if I could give any piece of advice to an entrepreneur out there, whatever business you're in, if you're selling rave equipment or selling t-shirts or whatever you're doing.
Dude, that's the second time you said it. What in the hell?
I was just
I may or may not have been on a site or two. I don't know, man. But like, know your stuff. Like, know your shit, because, like Keegan said, the IRS, they're going to come calling. Your employees, you bounce a paycheck or two, that's it. You're done. Like, your reputation in the space in your area is over. So knowing your numbers and not just going, well, let's look at them on a monthly basis, or let's look at them on a quarterly basis. Like, no, like, you need to be able to know where your business is at on a Monday and a Friday and on the Wednesday in between. If you're not using daily reporting functions, like utilizing basic Shopify.
Let me just ask you real quick. So you guys are in the media space, so you see your numbers all the time, right? So for people that are not maybe media buyers or operating online, or maybe have they have a business outside of that, is there other than the P&Ls that you get every month, is there a way to look at that? Other than QuickBooks, so I guess,
just understanding, like, you'd be so surprised how, like, Microsoft Excel, like Excel 100 could be the class. Like, just understanding that if your fixed cost and your variable costs tend to flow in the $10,000 to $12,000 range, split that up in 31 days. If you've got 50 recurring contracts coming in, you know what your labor costs are, right? You're gonna have an idea where you're at. But if all of a sudden your fixed and variable costs are $35,000 a month, and you've got 5 contracts at $5,000, we've got a problem, right? We're in a $10,000 deficit. Did we have $10,000 in the bank to start? I don't know. There's your problem. You didn't know. But,
right.
Whether you're in the business of e-commerce or you're selling, donuts down the road at a donut brick and mortar shop, if your fixed and variable expenses are more than your income, you've got a problem. And if you don't know those two basics, we've got a huge problem, because you're running a business and you have people or finances, I'm sure you've taken loans out, that are going, I hope you're doing a good job. And you're going, well, hell, I don't know what I'm doing. It's basic math of, what are your fixed expenses? What are your variable expenses? Are the variable expenses is there a 5% sway based on revenue or based on volume? And then, do you have projectable cashes? If you've got 5 contracts at $5,000, you got $25,000 to work with, cash intake. If your fixed expenses and variable expenses and your salary that you pay yourself are more than that, I hope you've got reserves, or I hope you've got a plan, versus just going, well, I'm gonna just keep borrowing. I'm gonna just keep borrowing, because eventually, the piper is gonna get paid, and that's the IRS, that's these bankers, that's these credit card companies. So my piece of advice is, like, know your numbers.
So one little quick one, because I went personal where he went business. So my business one would be, look for areas of opportunity, because there's just as much profit in loss mitigation as there is in just running Facebook ads or whatever your service is. look for the areas of opportunity where you can save, because very often, little expenses here and there can really add up. And especially in e-commerce, if you're able to trim the fat kind of in your lower performing ads, you're still going to get the benefit of the middle to high performers. But if you're cutting your losses faster, all you're going to be doing is improving your profits.
Is that something you guys look at on a weekly basis as well, trimming that? Or is that something you guys look at on a monthly basis or annually?
When it comes to like the different P&L lines, the P&L, we look at it on a monthly basis. We use accrual accounting. So we'll look at that on a monthly basis. But a lot of times, like your shipping and stuff like that, you're going to notice it, pretty quickly that I'm not charging enough. And if you have a supplier or a vendor handling those things, they're going to say, hey, you're charging customers $8 for shipping, but it's $10. Like if you lose $2 1,000 times a month,
that's a lot.
Do the math. Like we've got an expense that's getting out of hand. Understand each line of the P&L, and it doesn't have to be complex. You buy product for X, you sell it for Y. It costs X to ship. You get in Y to ship. Like it's just basic plus minus math. It's not crazy, trigonometry.
I also didn't take trigonometry.
I don't even know what trigonometry means. So it's been pretty powerful, guys. Like a lot of powerful stuff that's been dropped here. If people want to get in touch with you guys or learn how to work with you guys in some capacity, how do they do that? How do they reach out?
Just go to bluepackmarketing.com, contact us. A lot of times we see all the inbound stuff. So one of our business development guys will contact you. And if it's a rock star opportunity, we'll probably contact you ourselves. But, just on Facebook, with Keegan and Cory Rush, you can find us. We don't have a like page. It's just truly us. And if you want to send us a pitch or send us an idea, feel free to send it to us and we'll check it out.
Absolutely, guys. Well, it's been a pleasure. Thank you guys so much for coming on the Beta2Boss. And I will look forward to seeing you guys soon. See you guys.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks.
Beta2Boss with Chase Harmer. Growth, scale, success.